So we're all muted, except Mick and I. All right, so welcome. It's been a while since we had our last Zoom forum meeting. It's really exciting to be here to see you all, and it's lovely, we got a subject, and Mick and I, we spoke about the subject when we came up with it, or actually Mick did. And then we had a lovely conversation, didn't we? And we're a little bit like, okay, what was it again? So we're going to be totally fresh today with you. We're going to just speak from what comes up in the moment, and I think that's really exciting.
And also that once the conversation gets going, I think the topic will probably bring things up for you, because I know it. I've just had a few little reflections on it this evening or this afternoon, and not much came up. But if I just say what happened when the topic first came to me, it was I don't know how many weeks ago. It was probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago. And it was one of my morning reflections when I wake up quite early at about 4 or 5 in the morning and lie there, occasionally wishing I'd gone back to sleep. And I'm clearly not going to go back to sleep, but occasionally in those times there are some really nice insights that come to mind. One of the ones that came a couple of months back was that as I was turning my attention towards where thought came from, as I was turning my attention to the space out of which thought comes, I don't know whether it was for the first time, but it felt like for the first time I really got that we are the creators of our experience, and that thought is that vehicle through which we create anything, we create everything. And at the time it was oh, this is what they're talking about. It was one of those, I'd heard that, I've heard Sid say, or I've heard many people say, that thought is the creative power. And it had never really, I kind of got that I'm living in the feeling of my thinking. But the fact that we create, or that life is created via that medium, really hit me big time. And then about a month later or so, I went on the second part of a Jack Pransky training, and had some very big experiences, deep healings and insights and so on. And I spoke with Katja about that on a recording a couple of weeks back. But just before, I think it was just after Spain, actually. No, it was just after Spain. That notion of us being the creators was mulling around in my head one morning, again, probably 4 or 5 in the morning. And just the words, is life coming at us, or is life coming from us, came into my head, just as, it was almost like my personal coach had posed that question, my wisdom coach, or whatever you want to call it, just posed that question to me. So I was just lying there, experiencing those two ways of seeing the world. It's very easy for me to think that life is coming at me. It's very easy, and certainly, before the principles, I would say that, certainly 80 or 90% of life was coming at me, and occasionally it was good. Mostly it wasn't great, but certainly I was a victim of whatever life threw at me. And I would probably think in those terms. I would see life in those terms, that there was this stuff happening out there, and if the universe was not being particularly friendly, it would throw some nasty stuff. And so it was all about me getting strategies to change my thinking so that the universe was friendly, because I heard that was a really good thing to think. Someone said that. I don't know who it was. Someone said, "Is the universe friendly?" And that's a good idea. But when I was, in the moment those two phrases came, is the universe? Sorry, not is the universe. Is life coming from me? That was pointing to that creative force. It was pointing to the fact that whatever mind is, whatever life is, whatever the big force is, people have often referred to it as coming through us. And the question that came that morning was, is it coming from me? And I don't know why, but that seemed to be even more. I could feel it more than the phrase "from me." I could feel it as, well, it's either this or it's this. Either it's coming from me or it's coming at me. Very kind of black and white, if you like. And the feeling of it coming from me was incredibly empowering and incredibly scary as well, because it's full responsibility. It's it's full responsibility for how I'm feeling, and at the same time, there's real energy there. There's real energy of something being released. And on here, most people who've heard me and Katja in conversation, know that I have been exploring my health condition, and when I get the sense that life is coming from me, then the health condition and what's happening in my physical body is just an expression of the life force. It's not in any way, I'm not a victim of it. It's just me doing that particular expression of life. And so it becomes much more about energy. It becomes much more about, that's the only way I could say it. It's when I feel that life is coming from me, it's an energetic expression, and whatever that energy is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's good, it doesn't matter if it's bad, it doesn't matter if it's uncomfortable, it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if I'm sad or happy, or but it's a flow. It's a flow, and it ain't gonna get stuck. When life is coming at me, then my personal mind is making all sorts of judgments. It's all making all sorts of meaning. It's making all sorts of, oh, I've got to do something about. I've got to respond to life. I've got to respond. I've got to adjust whether my body's comfortable or all of those things, and it's a lot of hard work. So anyway, that's my starter to open the conversation. Katja, over to you.
You know what I heard you say, and what was really beautiful was that you saying that life comes from me. There, it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad, uncomfortable, comfortable, because it's all one, right? It's the energy creating me and my experience all in the same moment. So it's like there's just one creator, there's just one creation. And I'm somewhat with the unique form of the moment. I'm part of that bigger picture, and there is no judgment there. And it's and that sort of hurt a little distinction, because I used to say life comes through me, and I really like this paintbrush metaphor where I feel like I've become a tool of life to express itself. And I quite like that. But with this metaphor of that life comes through me, what happens in a way is that I still can get in the way of it. It still feels like there's two things. There's me, and there's something coming through me. But when you say it comes from me, I get more of the feeling of that. That's it. That's the simplicity of it. It already is what's happening. Without making the distinction between my personal mind and the creator, if that makes sense, because that is one thing. We always like to give names and labels. The question that arises in me, though, and what we can maybe discuss in the group, is what does that mean? What does that mean for us? And what does that mean for our physical health and the symptoms and the problems and the issues we face? What does that mean when it comes from me? Life comes from me. What does that mean? Does that mean for you, Mick? And the question to all of you, right? What does that mean to you, and how can we make use of that?
Well, I think, I mean, for me, if I mean, what just happened there, I just adjusted myself because something in me wanted to adjust itself. There wasn't the space, there wasn't any time of me feeling uncomfortable and then adjusting. It was just an adjustment, if you see what I mean. There was just the movement. I don't know if that makes, that's what comes to mind when you ask, what does it mean? It means that it's not so much that I respond to life, it's just that I am the response.
Well, as fact has it, I missed your movement, so I was a bit puzzled right now.
Oh, sorry, I just adjusted myself. I just got up and
I didn't see that.
Anyway, no, it was sort of while you were finishing talking, so yes. Not surprising.
So yes, we are that expression of it. That is it already, right? While you are moving, that's already it.
Yeah.
And even if you should feel like uncomfortable and stand still and not do anything about it, that's also life. Because we are just responding to any thought in the moment. That becomes our experience, that becomes our reality and what's happening. And even if we try really hard to do it any different, we're still doing it from life being what it is in the moment.
And the other thing that comes to mind, I remember I had a homeopath friend who used to talk about conditions as processes. So he would say that so-and-so was doing cancer. He wouldn't say so-and-so has cancer, he would say so-and-so is doing cancer, or he would say so-and-so is doing chronic fatigue, or so-and-so was doing arthritis. And at the time, I remember thinking, I mean, he wasn't a good friend. I don't think I liked him that much. I actually come to remember, but I think I was quite at the time. I think I was quite judgmental of how he was saying that, because it was a little bit like a slogan. You know, he was using it in quite a cliched way that, you know, this is, as a homeopath, this is how I have to think about illness. But when you say, Katja, what does it mean that it's coming from me? It's coming from you. For me, that's more what I've experienced, is that my health condition is a doing that's coming from me. It's not, you know, it's me doing it. It's my system doing it. It's not a condition. It's an energetic flow which is changing all the time. It's a process.
We got Phyllis who raised her hand, so I'm gonna unmute Phyllis.
Hi guys. I love that you just said that, Mick, about the doing, because what that says to me is it leaves that door open to stop doing. You know, it speaks to the flow, but it also speaks to, we don't have to keep doing. If we don't put our attention there necessarily, it doesn't necessarily expand. And it's like when you said you adjusted yourself in the chair. It was interesting, because it wasn't, oh, I'm not comfortable, I need to do this or I need to do that. And I think so often I've learned that if my knee hurts or my back hurts, if I don't focus there, it eventually just wanders away. I mean, obviously, maybe not obviously, there are situations, I'm sure, where it's more profound than that. But I think so often when we have a pain or an ache or a condition, we make such a big story out of it that it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And to me, the doing is just so neat, because it's that open door, open hand thing. It really can give us the option, as opposed to somebody, oh, I have cancer. You know, it's what's going on right now. But it doesn't, and as you said about life coming from me, it then gives us a flow to it.
Mm.
It's not an absolute.
Mm.
It gives us some wiggle room to let more light in, I think.
Mm.
I just love that. Thank you.
Okay, Phyllis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Veronica, you would like to say something? Okay, you're unmuted now.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is my first time hanging out with you, so I'm not really sure what you usually talk about and all this stuff. So if I say something that's totally obvious to you, please excuse me, forgive me. But when I listen to you, Mick, what struck me was that when we see our experience of our illness coming from us, what I see in that is we are part of this vast intelligence. We are part of life's intelligence. And what I've seen myself, I see in other people who are dealing with health conditions a lot, is that they somehow think that it's them against their symptoms or them against their illness or even them against their body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what I heard and what you said was, it so speaks to something that I'm seeing more and more clearly, that even our symptoms are part of that intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very important to see that. And when you talked about coming from us, and when you talked about the flow and about adjusting in a natural way, it all speaks to this deep intelligence that has to be in there, in the symptom, in the illness too. Yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. No, that's really well put. Thank you. Yeah. It does have to be there. I mean, how could it not? How could it not if everything is being created, from this intelligence?
Yeah, may I ask you something?
Yeah.
If you see it like that too, then how do you see symptoms, for example? What is a symptom for you?
I think, well, for me, a symptom. No, I have to stop myself because I was just about to give a glib answer. Let me just reflect. That was so quick. Let me just reflect on that a little minute. How do I see symptoms?
Yes, I mean, if it's part of this intelligence, then yeah.
I mean, I think if our feelings are our navigation system, if that is the case, which Sid was pointing to, and many people who've got a way deeper understanding than I do, they point to the feelings, let us know when our thinking's going off course, or going in the wrong direction. And to me, anything in the body that is out of sorts is just a magnification of a feeling. It's a magnification of maybe a bunch of thinking, And if that thinking gets laid down and laid down and laid down over time, then this is my belief, that the muscles start to hold the memory. They hold the memory of the thinking, and or the cells, or wherever it gets stored. That's my belief, is that it gets stored in the body, the thinking which is causing a problem. And if that is going in the wrong direction for over a period of time, then symptoms will start showing up. Does that answer?
Yeah.
Sort of.
There's no question.
Can maybe I can add something to that, because the next step really would be like, how do emotions and feelings serve us then, right? Because they are sometimes really horribly uncomfortable, but they still serve us to show us that our thinking is off. That our thinking sort of innocently runs in the wrong direction, or into a direction which we don't have to go in. And therefore those feelings and emotions serve us as a warning system. And so the stronger the emotions and feelings become, the more likely it becomes that they also show up in the body. Because that's one thing, is the thought, the emotion, and the physical appearance of that is one thing. So for me, it's very obvious that the physical body serves us as a bit more severe warning system than even the emotions and the feelings, because it's like running against the wall, and it hurts. And in that moment, the intelligence in the inbuilt intelligence in life is just helping us to stop doing what we're doing, and to wake up and say, no, stop, ouch, now, stop, ouch. It's like bang, bang, until you sort of, hang on a minute, what am I doing? So for me, that's very clear that symptoms do that. And when actually they are seen, not the symptoms, when not the symptoms are seen, but the information that wants to be displayed, the symptom simply falls away. Because in that moment, the symptoms are not needed anymore once we've seen the information. For example, I've shared this before, but when my very, very first time I had such a physical change through an insight was when I was on the telephone. I was just come across the principles a while back then, and I was having an argument or like a hefty discussion with my boyfriend, and he says to me, but you're not responsible for me. And I say, what? And he says, well, you're not responsible for me, you're only responsible for yourself. And I said, I had this weight lifted off my shoulders, and there was some neck and shoulder condition which nobody could fix it. I mean, I had a really good network of therapists, but nobody could fix it. Nobody could do anything about it. It always came back, and it was really nasty. But because I hated doctors at that point, I never went to the doctors neither, and just put up with it. And it was months I had this. And then it was suddenly gone, because that weight come off my shoulders, and instantly the physical symptom was gone. So in explaining that, how that feeling of pain, that physical symptom was serving me, really was to show me that I was taking on something on board that wasn't mine. It wasn't even my rucksack. It was his rucksack that I was carrying. But I didn't know that until I saw it. But when I saw it, the symptom was gone. So what happens to me now through this is that when something is going on in the body, in my body, I can see the tendency wanting to analyze it and finding out what it is. But at the same time, I know that doesn't serve me and that doesn't help me, because then I'm in my head. When I'm in my head about it, trying to figure out what it is, I will not know this. But knowing that it can be nothing but some conditioning that sits there, I know what to do. And that doing is do nothing. It's about being as happy as I can be. It's about being as relaxed as I can be. It's about being listening to wisdom, listening not to my own chatter, to the worries and the fears and trying to figure it out, not listening to that, but knowing that once that chatter stops and I calm down, I will hear what I need to hear from that intelligence that's already around me and in me and from me. That life that's doing that to me, right? It's not doing it to me. It's just like, for the lack of words, what is it I can do? I can do nothing but be the closest to my best well-being that I could be my true self. So symptoms serve me now to wake up, to relax, to wake up to my true self yet again and again and again. And invariably, things just move through the body and they just disappear, and the next thing comes or it doesn't, or I don't know. Does that help, Veronica? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's how I see it too. I'd even go a step further. Experienced with my chronic exhaustion, that the body not only gives us a warning, or that they're telling us take your hands off the stove or whatever, and then the body does it, and when we even then don't react to it, when we don't listen, it really uses everything it has to take us back to balance. And in the case of the chronic exhaustion, is it forced me to lay down and to do nothing. And so it's very helpful to hear it in your words, and that's really helpful.
You know, with the chronic fatigue or the exhaustion, I've got many clients who have had problems with no energy or whatever, but I've seen many times that people can, within one insight, suddenly have all the energy of the world, because the energy that does not lie within the body. It looks like that we got a certain amount of energy that is available to us, but sometimes in really difficult situations we have an enormous amount of energy, totally unexpected, and afterwards we often say, oh, I have no idea how I did that, because we are somewhat connected to an infinite source of the ability to keep going even if we think we can't. But true, when the I use this a lot because it's such a good example, is that when somebody's drinking alcohol and drinking and never stops drinking, most people say, when I ask, what happens to them, and they say they die. But that's not the case. First of all, they fall unconscious, they pass out. Because in passing out, the person will stop drinking. It's like it's like inbuilt into the system that in that moment a person cannot keep drinking because he's passed out. So the body has a chance to recover. You know, okay, in the long term, you know, if somebody's got a drinking problem, a long term, might be that somebody dies of that, and even that takes a long time because the body is so resilient. But there's a pullback mechanism, and when we just can't do anything else but just lay down, what's required is to be really still, because when we, you know, I've had one client and she said, yeah, I laid down then, but I had my computer on my lap or on my chest, and I was still searching the internet about chronic fatigue then. I said, well, do you think that's resting? You know, because she was seemingly resting her body, but she wasn't resting her mind. She wasn't really giving herself to life there, right? Because she was still trying to figure out what was going on, and so it had no effect. So I said, well, try and really just enjoy a break and see what happens. Just really rest. You know, it's like with no further thinking about it, just allowing yourself to be. And I've done it many times, and I still do it. I come often to the point where my body just requires me to do that. And what happens, and what always happens, is that at some point you suddenly stand up and you're full of energy for something. You either go and have a shower and enjoy it, or you suddenly find yourself at the computer working, or it's like it's magic when we really listen to it, and not only somehow think we know better, because the energy, the supply is right there once the information has been heard. You won't feel tired anymore. I had one client. Sorry.
No, I'm just aware that we had a question from Anne. Anne has a question.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that.
Is that okay for now, Veronica?
Absolutely. More than okay.
I can't find Anne. Oh, here you are. I unmute you, Anne, now.
Thank you. I loved, Mick, what you said about that we have a bunch of thinking that leads to symptoms, because that's something that I've always known in a strange kind of way. And I also loved what you said about muscle memory, that our muscles remember in a strange kind of way, because there's a lot of evidence now with people who do physical work that talk about it quite, you know, it's been around for many, many years. But when I came on the call, I was in so much turmoil, because I've just got back from the hospital visiting my brother-in-law who's dying from a brain tumor. And so, forgive me if this comes out a bit jumbled. I just speak as I am in the moment. It was beautiful for me to see him, because he's peaceful. The lines on his face are no longer there. He looks 20 to 30 years younger. And he's very, very peaceful. It's almost as if I could see the energy beginning to leave his body, but in a beautiful, peaceful kind of way. But I came away in turmoil, because I know that this is a bunch of thinking. And I know when I burned out about 4 years ago, I discovered actually that my burnout was a solution for me. And it got me to thinking about Bob, and how is it possible that a terminal tumor can be a solution for whatever it is that's going on in his life. And it's that bunch of thinking that's just got bigger and bigger and bigger until it's kind of manifested. And yet when I say that, it seems kind of quite an unkind thing. And I can only come back to my understanding that the principles are neutral. This energy that we are, because there's no separation, is neutral. So then going back to what Katja said at the beginning of the call, which I loved, was we create moment to moment to moment. So I'm just sitting here thinking about the power we have within us to create a solution that works for us in a strange kind of way. But also so severely in our usage of the power of thought, which is neutral, so severely that we can create something that's terminal. So I'm just sitting here, just blown away with the power that we are as human beings.
Truly extraordinary.
And then sadly to look at somebody that's found such a severe solution and, feeling the love and compassion for her life.
Quite difficult to find words for that. But it somewhat reminds me of what it was like to sit with my grandmother who died recently, and I was spending the last week with her. And I had a very similar feeling of that. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all wisdom.
Yeah.
It's all one, and it's part of life, like being born. And I also experienced my personal feelings coming in and out in it, of course. They were easily covering up the peaceful feeling and the feeling of that everything was okay just the way it was. And also seeing that we finally let go of all that conditioning that has created us in the form. It's like when you say that there was no lines anymore, and there was the conditioning was like made undone step by step. And I gave a promise when I was sitting with my gran in her last days. And the promise was about being able, like Phyllis said earlier, she said, I'm glad that Mick said something about the doing. We're doing this, so that means we don't need to be doing it anymore. And my promise in a way was about living, and was about allowing life to come through me in a way that's undoing that conditioning now. Why do we have to choose something severe like a brain tumor to be undoing those conditioning?
Yeah.
But for the person, it's quite easy. It's not often easy for the relatives who do not understand what's happening. Very hard.
Yeah. Yes, he's fine. He's fine.
He's fine. Yeah.
Yes. But I'm just so struck by the power of being human and our creative ability to take something completely neutral and like you said earlier, make meaning of it. It's extraordinary to me. Wow.
And it sounds like you're in a very different place from the turmoil right now.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, when I had I call it an insight. I had a big insight in Spain that was it was that word that came to mind. Exactly, that was just the power of it, the power of what we can create, and being able to see that power, to see that we can. I think, like what Phyllis was saying, not create. We have. It's not that we have an option, but it's seeing that there's the power to create something that is such a problem or such a difficulty for ourselves, and just seeing that we have that power allows us to let it go, or allows us to not do or not come up with that particular solution. It is, it's extraordinary.
I think what's beautiful for me is that I've seen more clearly how I create a solution in my life. And so that's what's impacted me really deeply today, is that I've, coming from, a whole lot of victim thinking to this powerful being that I am, where I'm capable of creating what feels like a solution in the moment. And it's an innocent misunderstanding on my part. And if I can see that innocent misunderstanding, then I don't have any judgment of it either. Then I'm at peace within myself. I'm in that neutral power, without any need to create solutions that seem to work for me in the moment.
Yeah, takes all the judgment away.
It does, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. It's lovely.
Would anyone else like to share anything? Or yes, Anna Greta.
You're unmuted.
Yeah. Hi, just a little comment on that. Well, it came to mind that it gives so much hope and freedom. Not to get caught up in thinking judgmental. It gets so much freedom, or not just mental, but overthinking and make it to a problem for yourself and others. Because I remember about my my death, or not my death. I don't remember that so good this time. No, my sister died, and I made really peace with her dying. She was also dying from a brain tumor. And at first I was very angry at her because she was very dear to me. And now she would leave me. And I was very angry. But I don't know how, but her spirit just continued calling on me to reflect and meditate and go deeper, to find peace. And I did. I talked with her in whatever space she was in before she died, and she showed me where she was going. And that made me so happy, because I knew that I could let her go and make peace with that. And yeah. So I didn't have this very... I have experienced some death of dear ones before, and I have been mourning very deeply about them. But my dear sister, who meant so much to me, I just could let go. And that gave me so much freedom for her sake and for my own sake. And that was very beautiful. So, yes. That was my little comment. Thank you.
What comes to me in this is that what becomes prominent is that health is not always about surviving or healing in that sense. It's about coming to terms with how life decides for us. And that's very beautiful, and I could hear that in Anne in the story, in the brain tumor. It's about, it's not about that every person needs to be healed in the sense of what we really want. We want to survive and be well and all this, but it's how it's guiding us through the experience that magically unfolds in a way with most grace, or with the most peace in the heart. I mean, even gurus die eventually. Sidney Banks died, but he wasn't at all frightened. He was just peaceful with it, and he knew what to expect because he had already experienced what it was like. And I think that for me, seeing my grandmother in this situation has been really, really helpful, because it's about living while we're living, and it's like a ride in the form in this game of life. We can have a go at that, experiencing all sorts of things. It's about experiencing it all. And exactly like Annegrethe just said, losing your dear sister is not exactly what you want in life, right? But still, even the saddest of saddest things that can happen to us can be a beautiful thing, in a sense. Like when my dad died, I had the most beautiful feelings then. And funny enough, because I didn't understand the principles then, I was always feeling guilty for that. I thought, oh no, you shouldn't be feeling so good. I mean, now in hindsight, I know all that happened was that my mind cleared, my head cleared, and I fell into this peaceful feeling of knowing that everything was all right. And I didn't know any better, so I started beaten myself up for it. I mean, it's quite funny when I think about it now, right? But for many years, I felt really bad about that. I couldn't understand why I wasn't screaming, crying, and all sorts. So, yeah, so I just, you know, that was the promise to my grandmother. I missed that bit in the when I spoke earlier, but it's about experiencing life as life unfolds. And I think that the guidance that we get through our symptoms is pointing us in that direction. But Renata you have taken your hand away now, Renata. Do you still want to say something? Yes, hang on. I'm finding the unmute button. Here we are.
I've been going between, wow, yeah, empty, yay, thought full of insights, yay, everything in between. So one point raising the hand, then going back. I have no clue what I'm about to say, only that I have a desire to do so.
Sounds good.
And hopefully I'm going to have to think it's pertinent. I was moved, the kinship of spirit. There was a reference, for example, when somebody passes on. I had a very turbulent relationship with my dad most of my life. And I was not in connection, I was not in contact with him when he passed on for years. And I learned that he was in a coma, and the next thing I knew, I'm walking in, this is a story I've told, but somehow it's different today, the way I feel it. I'm making a link between different stories I've shared. This is what's happening right now. And I've had a better relationship since he's not in body, because we're not caught up in the thoughts of who we're supposed to be and what we did to each other. There's only love. But when he physically left his body, I had a energy encounter with his spirit as I was walking through the corridor in my house. And there was a wordless conversation which basically said, we love each other and everything is all right, even our human stories and disagreements. And for me, that was healing. That was liberating. The other one is with my grandmother. When my maternal grandmother, when she died, my mom was living in England, second marriage, and she could not make it in time to the funeral. So I ended up, apparently, according to custom, being put in her place in the church sitting when they were doing the things. But before the church, they have a funeral home, and they have the body. And then before they closed the casket, I went by and I was looking at everybody. I had not had many contacts with my grandmother. She was more pieces of memories, of loving memories, and one conversation 1 month before she died, where we literally spoke about love and spirit, her through her church upbringing, and me through my wisdom. And we both agreed that the core of it was love. Then she died, thankfully, peacefully. And I ended up being asked to take my mom's physical place in the ceremonies. So I was looking at everybody in the funeral home, and everybody was, back then I didn't understand it, but I could clearly see everybody was in their story bubbles, their thoughts. So some of them were making it a big thing, others were already arguing as to whatever material possessions they were going to try to wrestle out of the inheritance. And every story in between were there. It's almost as if it was a caricature. Yet there was this no judgment. And I was just curious. And when I had looked moments before at my grandma's body, it often happens, it feels like they're breathing still when the spirit is there. This is my interpretation. When energy is there. And they interrupted and gathered together in a farewell prayer. And the next thing I physically saw was this translucent energy form on top of the body, like the part that was breathing, like if you see the halo of a moon, or on top of a fire, the flame. And it gathered together, became almost like a lozenge. I don't know if it's the English word, but it became radiant and exploded in transparent light energy. And I felt it like a wave coming through the whole room, and every single person, without knowing, they were busy in their bubbles, all became peaceful. And the reason, again, still no clue, but getting an inkling that I'm sharing this, is as I was listening to Katja, I've already posted like a blah blah comment thanking you about the link between thoughts and different things. But for years, I thought that I was, what could I say? It was my fault I was sick. And I wasn't doing a good enough job at being healthy. And then I went the total opposite. It wasn't my fault I was sick, and I still wasn't doing a good job. And listening to everyone today, the only thing I can feel is, I'm going to put it in words, maybe it's not like technically okay, but it was this sustained, loving energy from the universe, giving me the opportunity to experience the thought construct I had done until I was done with that experience. And if I had persisted and insisted on maintaining that thought form, innocently or not, because I was quite good at it, the official diagnosis was I was going to be bedridden for life, getting physically worse and going mentally nuts. And there was nothing they could do. And thankfully, I was scared out of my wits, and I refused to be put in a mental hospital. Otherwise, I would have been drugged and probably end up physically dead. And I will one day, but I prefer the version now where I'm conscious of this love. I'm conscious of this energy. I'm conscious of the neutrality of it. And at the same time, again, being redundant, the all-encompassing love aspect of it for me. And I prefer this version here with all of you, even if I feel awkward as I'm speaking, then you're going to get it when you drop dead version.
It's funny though, Renata, because just recently I had an interview with actually Michael Neal interviewed Anita Morjani, which is one of my favorite authors, and who wrote the book Dying to Be Me after she'd had this near-death experience.
And it's funny, I just posted a quote from Anita Morjani that I got somehow this morning on the Insight. Go on.
Yes, but you know that what she said, and what really, really, really stuck with me was that it's so funny that when she came back from that experience, she had clearly touched the space of being perfect, right? Being that divine energy that lives through us, touching that, being able to go back to that, if that's at all a word that we could use for the process that's happening there, which we will never understand, but hey ho. She said when that very same moment, she had also realized, well, I'm just saying it my words now, but what I understood from what she said was everybody on this planet seems to be thriving to get to that state. Right, get to that state that we live in this clear mind and feeling all angelic and feeling all like enlightened ourselves, but we're really missing the point, because we are that angelic state of mind already, and we are especially coming into the body to be experiencing the human experience.
Yes.
But we are frightened by the human experience, and this is why we are sort of trying to get to to the nicer one, to the human experience, which seems to be feeling like peaceful and nice. And, we are not allowed to be angry. We're not allowed to be judgmental. But hey ho, you know what? It's all part of being human, and being sick is part of that too. So
yeah, I love the synchronicity. The posts that all of a sudden I got this morning, I usually unfollow. I liked Anita Moriarty, but I didn't realize I was following her Facebook site. So this morning, the one I shared on your page, she says, I decided to return when I realized that heaven or nirvana is a state and not a place. I know now that I can experience heaven right here and right now.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And
who was it who had, sorry, Renata.
It's okay. It's okay that I'm not having enough words to express it, because somehow it's beyond the words in what I've been sharing that it comes through. This is the sense I'm getting. Like when I looked recently, when you shared Mick's journey recently, that's you see a person and you think they're beautiful, and all of a sudden you're happy because they're standing fully in their body. That's how I saw you, Mick.
Yeah, I see that Cheryl has raised her hand. Sorry, Mick, did I interrupt you?
No, go for it.
Okay, I unmute you, Cheryl. There you are.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes, perfect.
I have spent this whole time on this call being really angry, kind of like, oh, so it comes back to me. It's my fault that these symptoms I have, because I don't quite understand. I mean, the whole thing maybe that we all go through. But then when Renata spoke, and it just changed suddenly, because she talked about blaming herself. And then you mentioned Anita Mohani, and how, what I realized is that I know for a fact, 100%, that when I leave this world, it's all love. It's all love. There's just no, that's there. But I don't see that at all in this human experience. I've only seen that this is really hard, especially with illness. But the quote you gave about that, yeah, we're all striving for that end result, but we don't realize that this is what we have here. This is human experience. So I'm not sure where to go with that, but I wanted to just tell you that I really, really heard that. So important for me, it's not my fault. It's not me to blame, is it? And yeah, so I'm just going to sit with that. But boy, thank you, Renata, and thank you, Katja, for that. Sometimes we only hear a certain thing, and it hits us.
Yes. Oh, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing it, and that's so beautiful. It's that huge paradox, isn't it? That somewhat life comes from us, but at the same time, we can't be blamed because it's just a creative process that's happening from a higher power.
Yeah, and it's a very difficult. It's a difficult one with pain and everything that goes with an illness. It's very difficult to not feel like, why am I being punished, or I'm not getting this, at all. And I'm still not, I'm sure, but maybe there for just a few minutes, and for right now, I kind of got it because I just had the feeling, and I'm not going into the thinking of it, you know. So, you know, I'll take it.
Yes, wonderful.
Yes, yes. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just share a little bit about what I saw in terms of my own health? Because I think when I had my insight, that the insight was that I had completely innocently created my own sclerosis, and when I shared this in the group that I was with, immediately there was people hearing it in terms of blame or fault, and that wasn't the insight that came. The insight that came was very much what Anne was talking about, was that we have the power to create. We have the power to create illness, and there's not a shred of blame in that. There's not a shred of. The only way there could be blame is from making meaning of it, from after the fact, and the space that allowed me to, what you were saying, Cheryl, that loving power, that was the only place that I was able to receive that insight, or to have the insight come to me, was because in that particular moment I had completely surrendered into a feeling of being dissolved in a space of love. And you'll hear anyone, I mean, like Chris Noonan, who's on the call here, I've heard him talk many times of being in that space, and Anita Morjani is being in that space. That's the place where we can have the courage to see the creation. Because there isn't blame. There is no blame. It's just there's no way I could have been told by any external, by myself included. There's no way I could have told myself, oh, you've caused this illness because you've been thinking like this, or blah blah blah, or I don't mean to diss Louise Hay at all, but it was popular in the 70s and 80s to say that, oh, this illness means this thing, and this means you've been doing this, or you've been thinking like this. And if we're told that from an outside in way, it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing, and is just likely to create more thinking, just likely to create more self-judgment than we already have. But if it's coming from that place of, the place where insight comes from, it comes from out of the blue, comes from out of love, that's when it has meaning, and because we're seeing the creative process, we're seeing the power. That's all I wanted to say.
It's very nice, very beautiful. Okay, we got Phyllis raised her hand first. Mute Phyllis, here you are.
It'll be short because Mick just hit it, which to me, something that keeps coming back and back is the innocence. Our innocence in our thinking. That we create so profoundly out of innocence. And then we blame ourselves
Mm.
and say, oh, well, oh, they say that we created it. Oh, I must have thought that I wanted this. You know, it's so, we get so screwy in our heads. The other thing was that as Anna was talking about her brother-in-law and the peace, I think so often we see that peace as we near an end point. But I also think there are those times when we let go of control. And it's not, unfortunately, with traditional medicine, it's not reported as much. But I know physicians who say, I have no idea what happened because somebody spontaneously healed. It's like, well, how did that happen? And I think if we really look at it, it's a surrendering of control, of trying to control that which we can't. It's mind blowing. And you brought up Louise Hay, and I have a Louise Hay book that I often look at. I've never done the affirmations and all that jazz, but when she first came out with it, I thought, this is so much hooey. It's ridiculous. And spent probably 10 years, anytime anybody I knew or anyone else complained about, oh, I've got this going on or I got that going on, I've got a kidney infection or I have shingles, or I'd look it up and see what it said, the possible thought patterns, and it made me laugh every time, because in my thinking at that moment, it was like, well, yeah, that fits. I didn't think they needed to go through the whole process. And with my own father, who suffered from shingles toward the end of his life, profoundly, the one with that is waiting for the other shoe to drop. And he kept having recurring outbreaks of shingles. And I said, Dad, he was in his late 80s. I said, hey, Dad, is there any chance that you're like waiting for the other shoe to drop or something? And he named my two brothers who were going through stuff that he as a father was trying to manage in his head, you know, how he could help them, how he could advise them. And he just laughed. He said, oh, yeah, I've been waiting for the shoe to drop for the last year and a half, the other shoe to drop. And he let that go and stopped having outbreaks. Mm-hmm. So it's that surrendering of what we see. And often, as Mick just pointed out, you know, it comes from that place of wisdom beyond us. It's just having that little opening to wiggle in. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you. What comes to mind with that is that even if Louise Hay is right in what she analyzed, and I've seen a few that are right, or I can understand not right and wrong is difficult because it's my personal perception and how I see it. But if it is right, then it's just an indication for that the conditioning can be melted by a new creation, by the source any moment. And that's the hopeful thing about Louise Hay and her books and all that, is to be seeing that it can change, because we know the principles. We know that how the creation of our moment-to-moment experience gets created can change with a new thought, and that's true for the body as well. And Mick's powerful example is, I can only recommend to watch the video. I've posted it with the same email, because when I heard his story, I again saw it in a deeper way, really, that we're actually creating all of this. We're not just having an experience of all of this, but we are the ones who from whom this comes. It's the grammar now that I'm struggling with.
Where did you say you were from?
Oh, forget it. But this is you know what, when who was I speaking with? I can't remember who it was now. Somebody told me I had an insight, but it was the exact same thing, like I had an insight about 5 times already, but I just really saw it this time. And we were laughing. But this is another layer of seeing it, knowing it, and knowing it on a more profound level or something. But anyway, Chris, it's your turn.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Mick, bringing me in. I was a bit late. I think this whole thing was starting later. Sorry.
It's okay. Nice to have you.
Yeah, but the issue about death and experiences and illness and so on. The thing is for me that it's really realizing that the whole my whole life experience has something to do with me. That's it, you know. So instead of putting it out there, that out there is doing something to me, you turn it around. Yeah. So that's so simple. Keith Blevins, psychologist, you know, saying we have this idea that our feelings and our thinking are 2 separate things, which is ridiculous when you think of it. Of course, it's interwoven. It's just 2 sides of the same coin. And the same thing with everything we experience. It's connected. So somehow or another, it's not no one's fault that this happens. You know, that would be like saying that something outside is doing something inside. Something is producing this result. But more looking at it more like a game that's going on. So, you know, yin and yang, or it's all going on in this circle or whatever we call it, and pinpointing it to say that this is the reason why Louise Hay. I think she's a very bright woman, I'm sure, but it's really just one of many possible ways of seeing something. I think it's helped a lot of people to be more aware of their own thinking. That's a good thing. Be more aware that there is a connection somehow, but but really we have to find this connection ourselves. That's what you said, Mick. You have to find your own conclusion or understanding from the inside. And that might be one way of seeing it, the way you saw it, that works for you. Someone else will say it a little bit different or have another way of putting together getting the understanding. Whatever the way, we heal. Once we get it, we heal. And I guess that's because it collapses. You know, we don't have this. It's like the feeling and the thinking. All of a sudden, when it meets, when we really understand it that it's the same, things can move very rapidly because there's no time. No, it doesn't really have to. It's just like, okay, I you know, one could say as a metaphor, now I've understood it, now next problem. Or the next level, or like in a computer game, you know. So for me, it's like I had some very large insights in my life. I still seem to go out and do stupid things afterwards, but just not. But that's just a new kind of stupidity, or a new kind of issue or learning process, whatever you call it, because the level changes, and maybe the level in the consciousness elevator changes, whatever. My sister died some years ago, and I was together with her when it happened. She was in a coma, and I had the most beautiful experience of having a connection to her without words. and at one point it was very intense, and I talked to her. I started talking like she was awake and telling her about how beautiful she was and how much I loved her, and that we were in the garden together, and it just came fluidly through me, this experience. And at one point there was a tear in her eye, and I was very, very sure that we were actually connected. And then she stopped breathing. And just, seconds after that, I noticed this black bird sitting outside in the hospital window. And I was just, wow, yeah, it's connected. And I don't know, I wouldn't be able to explain this but very, very, my feeling, the whole situation was like, there is no time, it's all like having a glimpse into what's behind everything. Yeah. And it's a bit like this movie, The Truman Show. You remember that? Or what was it called? Where this guy lives in a fake world. They made this television studio, and all of a sudden the microphone drops down. And that's weird. Where does that come from? He started to realize that reality is not at all what he thought it was. And for me, that's the same. You suddenly have this realization that it's not what I thought it was. It's really different. This is really magic because because something here is happening that's very real, and I can't really explain it, but I can really, really feel this beauty. It's a very beautiful thing that happened. And I was so grateful to be there, to have this experience. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was not lovely.
Well, we seem to be at the after an hour and a half.
Yeah, I was just checking the time. Okay. It went quick. So somehow for me, it's like, it's wonderful to be exploring this all with you guys and sitting together and being able to speak about it. And when somebody else hears it, that, for all of us, it's inspiring or can be inspiring. At least that's what I hope, because that's why we're doing this, because it can help us, because I think the understanding that we share is helping us to stay aware to the fact that we are safe all the time, and that the game of life is coming from us in a way that we always do our best. I love that. And that just helps me to relax into life and to living it and to the best of my abilities, moment to moment. And less beating myself up for that, not doing it properly or something like that. So thank you all for sharing and for being with us. And thanks for sharing the journey as well. And it means a lot to me. So thanks.
Likewise. Thank you. No, there have been some lovely sharings from people and comments. And yeah. we're all in the same boat. That's what I get from this.
Yes. All
Always.
in the same boat. Anyway, so we'll let you know when we have the next one. Next month, probably. And the recording will be up if you want to watch parts of it or the whole thing again. Or give it to somebody else who might be inspired by it. And take good care of yourselves. I'm going to unmute everybody if I find the button. Oh,
We
here I
can
am.
unmute ourselves if you can't.
Yeah, I found it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you all.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
See you next time.